Hello, everybody. My name's Ken Hamilton, and this is Clearing the Mist. What we hope to do is to help people to understand the things that are happening around them, the things in their lives of importance, things that we don't much talk about all that often. But we have some misunderstandings as a result that we don't. Before we get started, though, let me tell you about the other fine people that do these shows every weekday with us. On Monday, we have, of course, me. Today is Monday, Clearing the Mist with Ken Hamilton. On Tuesdays, it is the Rick and Rhonda show. Rick got his show because one day I missed the show and he was the guest. And I told Nas that he could do a great job, and he did. He did a wonderful job, and he continues to do a wonderful job, he and Rhonda. Vibing with Vicky on Wednesdays, and she's fantastic, Vicky Weideman. And then there's Keeping It Frank with Frank Hadley. You know, that's a young man that really inspires me when I listen to him. What he's talking about are things that need to be talked about. And then there's my good friend, Dr. Nasser Khan. He's on Friday, and he's talking about faith, and faith matters. And so now, one of the things that we have, we're an urban place. And, you know, if you haven't noticed that, I'm an African American. Darn good looking one too, and people think I'm smart, so I can fool anybody anytime. And so one of the things that I'm particularly interested in is, well, the plight of African Americans in the United States. And again, I've had tremendous success in my life, tremendous opportunities as a result of being an African American. In fact, I'm going to tell you something. Again, the way you think changes everything. How did I pass the New York State Troopers exam with a perfect score? Is because I learned how to think in a way other than what the streets are and other things in my life, that when you're taking something, you're dealing with the cops, then the one thing that you have to do is learn how to deal with the cops by thinking like the cop. I worked shore patrol in Philadelphia for 2 terms, and it was a real eye-opener for me. Most of the people that we were picking up looked like me. My partner was white. Nobody ever seen him. I think he was cast for the Friendly Ghost or something, because I was supposed to let people go. But I knew what my job was, and I knew how to do my job, and I thought I did my job very well. One of the things that we need in our society today is more cops out on the street that looks like us. And those cops don't necessarily have to be on the street. If you want to be a police officer and you want to make a difference in people's lives, it's not always, chasing them down on the streets and things like that. There's an opportunity that's come up that you could become a New York State police officer with a pension, with everything that the state troopers get. I turned that job down. And you could do this by walking through the woods, doing what my folks and your grandparents used to do all of the time, hunting and fishing and checking on people who are out there. We have and if you put that back up on the screen for me, we have an opportunity with the Environmental Conservation Police Officers who by August the 3rd, 2022, and you need to remember this because I want everybody to apply. Once you apply, you don't have to do it, but don't miss this great opportunity so that you can enjoy many of the things that, that the New York State pensions, the benefits, the security of the job, and all of these things will bring for you. Now, we're going to have a guest on, George Scheer, and George is a conservation officer for the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. I'm just going to call him a country cop because he traipses through the woods. But he not only traipses through the woods with my 30-some-odd years in industry, he's also a tailpipe inspector for effluent that goes out into the river and smoke that goes up into the atmosphere. And so you could have an opportunity to be one of the most sophisticated police officers in New York State, along with the state troopers, the parks. And I'm learning some things today. He was talking about the SUNY cops, State University of New York cops, as well as not just the state park, but there was another.
The New York State Forest Rangers.
Forest Rangers, and all of these opportunities exist. One of the things that impresses me about George is that he says, from his job and what he's trained to do in conservation, that he could lateral to any other police agency in the state and still be able to catch up and excel. And so if you want to become a police officer and there's no openings where you are in your policing departments and in your sheriffs, well, one of the things that you could do is you could become a conservation cop, a country cop, until such time that these things open up and you can choose a lot of different things, a lot of career choices. George, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Ken.
Oh, no, I mean, I'm going to have to say this, George. Let them know how we met.
Well, we met in the parking lot at a Tops in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter and I think she was the 6 years old, 5 or 6. We were getting ice to go out fishing that day, and
Yeah.
I think you asked me a question about the boat.
Yeah. You had pulled up about the same time on the other side of the cart rack.
Yep.
And I saw your boat, and I said, that's a nice boat,
Yeah.
And so I went over and I just started talking to you.
Yep, and we just found a lot of commonality and just two good Americans talking to each other, and I think that's when my daughter sort of introduced herself to you, and I think you say it better than I do.
So her father and I were talking. He's a little sweetheart. I love kids. Anyone who knows me knows that I just love kids. And she just was anxious to join the conversation, but the level at which we were speaking, she was not able to join the conversation. And so she just looks up at me and she just chimes up and she says, guess what? I says, what is it? She says, I got kissed by a boy. It was as good. A little boy comes over and kisses her. And she added that to the conversation. I tell you, I'm going to remember that for a long time.
Well, as your father, so will I.
George, what is a conservation officer?
Well, conservation officers are sworn police officers of the state of New York that are tasked with specializing in enforcing the laws and regulations that protect our natural resources, our fish and wildlife, and the environment. And we do that through a means of education, outreaches, and law enforcement.
How do you feel about that? How did you become? Why, well, of all of the police agencies that you could have been a part of, why did you choose this one?
I didn't originally, I wanted to be a police officer since I was 12, and the goal was to be actually a state trooper at the time. That's what I thought I wanted to be. And
Why, because you like speeding up and down the highways?
Yeah, doing that maybe. I like the prestige of it, and I didn't realize there were other state law enforcement agencies out there. But a couple of years into hunting small game, one time we were out and about, and we got checked by a DEC officer, and my friends knew more about him than I did, and they said, well, don't mess with the game warden. That they'll take your hunting license or this or that,
And your boat?
I didn't know anything about it, and I remember the day I saw the posting for the DEC conservation officer exam, it was the last day to sign up. And I read about it quickly, and I started reading about the police of the woods, the water, ATVs, snowmobiles. I thought, I got to try for this. This is a once-in-a-lifetime shot. So I signed up for the test. I got lucky. I scored high enough, and back in 2008, and that's when I got called to join up and started off with the basic school.
Do you know what your ranking was in selection process?
I do not recall.
No.
I didn't score as high as you did on the trooper's exam. I can tell you that for sure.
Well, I probably did, but they ranked us alphabetically. And so as an H, I came in the state number 11. So it was like, yeah. And so, yeah, it was pretty good. But I was a veteran, and so they gave me those 5 extra points, so that pushed me up to 105. You work primarily where now?
I'm assigned to Niagara County.
And you spend more time in the woods than you do at tailpipes or the end of processes of factory processes, air and water. Right?
It depends on the county and what types of complaints you get. In Niagara County, our fish and wildlife duties really kick in the fall with the salmon run up at Burt Dam.
Yeah, I've been up
That is
there.
a busy time. We have a world-class fishery for salmon and trout on Lake Ontario here.
We really do. And up here, up in the upper river, man, my cousin took me fishing for bass, and it was like going to the fish market. I'm sitting on the gunwale of the boat, the wall of the boat, And he says, grab the net, grab the net. And he had a bass on the hook. That thing had to be about, I guess about 11 inches, a black bass,
Yeah.
black big mouth bass. And he says, okay, get the bass. He says, stop. He was fishing with the Mr. Twister, a chartreuse twister. It was hanging out the bass's mouth. And he says, why he wants me to stop? So he slackened up on the line. The 11-inch bass spit the bait out, and a 13-inch bass, and he says, now. And, I mean, it was like me looking at your shoes right now.
Yeah.
That's how close
Yeah.
it was, I'm saying. He was a great fisherman. Willie Hamilton, a lot of people know him because he takes pictures of birds and all of these other things. He's a conservationist himself of sorts. But he used to race cars, and that's what his strength was in with that Sunday Niagara drag strip. So now, you do most of your work, though, with Fish and Game, then.
I think my caseloads in Niagara County are probably pretty close to 50-50 in this county. Because we have a lot of environmental quality things. We got so much water with the Niagara River, Lake Ontario, all of these tributaries.
What do we have, the tributaries? We got, 12? 13?
12-mile creek, 18-mile creek, 4-mile, 6-mile.
And then Cayuga, Gill Creek. Erie Canal, Barge Canal.
Yep. So you do get a lot of illegal, so air quality complaints. You get a lot of open burning of trash or rubbish that affects the air quality. It's part of our environmental quality duties. We do, a lot of the complaints in Niagara Falls that I get actually in the city are people dumping unlawful disposal of solid waste. Mm-hmm. We've had people dump anything from a 24-foot boat, just dropped it right off the trailer, left it on the street, to people just dumping their construction and debris after a construction job. Instead of just taking it to the trash dumps legally, they'd rather just dump it in someone else's neighborhood.
What they have to pay to dump that stuff in the
There is a fee to dispose of it lawfully,
Right.
but when you do it illegally on someone else's property or neighborhood, and you get caught and you get high fines and you still have to pick it up and dispose of it lawfully afterward, it's easier to just do it the right way.
Well, how many times a month do you catch these people doing those types of things?
Receiving the complaint and catching it are two different things. Unlawful disposal of solid waste, when you just find a junk pile,
Right.
it's hard to pinpoint who brought it there.
Yeah, unless
right?
there's somebody, a witness or a camera, right?
Witness or camera. Sometimes there's materials left behind that give us leads,
Yeah.
and if it can take us to a store where there are security cameras, it gives us a lead, but it doesn't always prove who put it there. So that's, when we talk fish and wildlife versus environmental quality, there's definitely, you get a lot of what we call them EQ cases in Niagara County as well. So it's not just fish and wildlife.
Okay, and what about the effluence of the rivers and factories? Over in Tonawanda, they had that big issue with the
Tonawanda Coke
Right.
plant. Yeah, that was also an air quality issue as well, which that's Erie County. I wasn't assigned to that complaint, but law enforcement, I believe, got the initial call, and then we got our civilians within the DEC that work for our Air Resources Division involved in that as well to help.
So now you get these complaints. What's your clearance rate?
You mean how quick we get them turned over?
Well, the ratio of how many you actually discover and are able to prosecute.
I don't have numbers on that. Most people seem to be, especially with fish and wildlife related complaints, most people seem to be pretty cooperative with us as police officers. I don't know if it's just, the thought that the conservation officer or the department, you could have your license taken away. Some people think that we can do more than we can with seizing everything they own, and we're still bound by the Constitution like any other police agency.
Right.
So, and we all
Should hope
believe
so.
in the Constitution and look to uphold it as police officers. But a lot of stuff, it's either proactive investigations where you're sitting watching people. So, say for instance in the fall, we're watching fishermen down at Burt Dam. We got people from all over the place, different states coming to do for the salmon run.
Yeah. You can't snag fish down there anymore, right?
Nope, not anymore. There was a time when you could,
Yeah.
well before my time. But there was a time when you could, but then no, can't do that.
Go on.
were talking about the clearance rates. I don't really have the numbers on that. I know all the officers work hard and they take every complaint seriously, and you want to make the case. You want to find out who it is, and a lot of times it's your interviewing techniques. It's your pre-work before you make contact with the interview. Get all the evidence you can, and a lot of times I think it's how you talk to people.
I would imagine that it is, and it's a lot easier to talk to people who are fishermen and hunters than people who are inside of the city actually hunting for things that they shouldn't have that belong to other people. Hey, folks, I need to tell you this. If you want to ask a question, we have the mechanism for which to do so. You just comment on the Facebook page that you're watching. They'll come up on the screen, and we'll be able to have your questions answered for George Scheer, who's a conservation officer. What is this most hairy situation you've been in?
It's easier when it comes up organically. I started my career down in New York City. I was assigned as a sector officer to Staten Island, New York. 9 months later, I got very lucky and I got a bid for the Marine Enforcement Unit. It's one of our specialty units.
Right, yeah.
So those are the officers who are specialized in enforcing the laws and regulations for all saltwater species, your saltwater fish, shellfish, crustacea, lobster. And working in Brooklyn, Bronx, Manhattan's Chinatowns, and going into the fish markets where no one speaks the language you speak.
No, they're Mandarin.
And everyone's around, and they got knives, and you're just working, going in fish holds or going up on some of the larger vessels, checking out the fishing vessels out in the ocean. If you watch Deadliest Catch, those are the type of some of the encounters we would do out on the ocean. And those boats don't stop when they have their trawls out. So they're underway, making way,
right?
And we pull up with our police boat, make contact with the captain so they know what we're doing,
right?
And you put an officer or two on
while you're moving.
While you're moving. So one particular instance, partner and I saw 4 trawling vessels that were not from New York State, but they were fishing too close. They were within a half mile of shore, and we jumped on our 31-foot safe boat, went around out Jamaica Bay, out in the Atlantic Ocean, and made contact with all 4 vessels. The thing is, somebody still has to drive the boat, and somebody has to get on the fishing vessel.
And there was only 2 of you?
There was only 2 of us that day. And I was the lucky one, the junior member that had to go on the fishing vessel. And these are men who work for a living. Yeah. You know, they have arms the size of your thighs. And it's just you on their boat. This is their means for making a living, and most of them are honest and good people.
Right, most of them are.
Yes, of course they are. Most anyone conservation officers deal with are honest and good people.
Right.
But this particular instance, we had to get on, get their permit numbers, quickly weigh their catch limits, and we rounded up 4 Jersey trawlers, seized 719 pounds of fluke, the summer flounder it was over their limit, offloaded it onto our boat while at sea, and had to seize it as evidence. And that was one of, being on the boat by yourself, I guess, was one of the hairier situations that just comes to mind.
Especially when you got guys whose arms are bigger than your thighs.
Oh yeah, these men, these men work for a living.
Hey, I was Navy, so I know all about movement.
Yeah.
Right, relative motion. Okay, what is the most enjoyable thing that you didn't deliver a baby or anything, did you?
No, that wasn't nothing that cool. It's hard to pinpoint one aspect of the job.
All right.
I mean, I started in, like I said, New York City. I worked in Long Island. Being on that Marine unit, I had 2 senior officers that showed me a lot of things. I got to receive so much training with Marine law enforcement, vessel operations. I've been to federal schools, county schools. With just 3-4 years on the job, I started training at our academy, and I eventually took over. So I got on the job in 2008,
right.
And I was able to take over our whole Marine training program in 2011 while I was still down in New York City. And I'd go up to the academy, we'd train, do our boat training. It's a 3-week boater course. So I would have to say that was probably one of the best aspects of my career. In 2013, I got a transfer to the academy. I worked there as a technical sergeant. I helped administer a couple basic schools and all of our Marine training across the state. And that was
let's
very
hold up on that
rewarding.
for a second. Let's. What are you guys doing here?
This is their physical fitness training with some CrossFit in there, some military. Right there we have the the OC spray. Yep, that's the gauntlet. You get sprayed before you can carry it, and you have to go through. It teaches the officer to fight through it if you ever get sprayed. That's the water recovery training, where if you ever get thrown into water or handcuffed yourself, kind of gives the officers a little feel. If, God forbid, you're out on the water checking a fisherman,
You fall over.
or you get pushed or handcuffed and thrown in. This is some of our swift water rescue training here.
Where was that?
This was in Pulaski, New York. This is our academy here, you can see, up in Pulaski, New York.
Where's that at? What county?
It's Oswego County, 30 miles north of
South
Syracuse. Yep, right on the Salmon River. Once again, another big fishing spot. This was an academy that we did a couple of years ago. I actually got a chance. I was working at this academy at this time.
Now, did you get a chance to ride in the basket?
Nope. I never went up in the helicopter. Hey, look at that guy right there.
Oh,
That's
looked
when
like
I was
you,
a technical
huh?
sergeant. Yep. This is our canine demonstration. We do have canine teams that specialize in hidden weapons and hidden fish, illegally caught fishing game.
And this?
Some of our officers showing.
Escape, huh?
Yeah. And those are some of our recruits in that basic school.
How good were you in archery?
I was a lot better after the basic school. This is some of our patrol tactics where the officers who are already on the job will put recruits in a scenario that officers have actually been in before. And we have a set of guidelines, how they handle things. Just kind of prepares them for the field, what they may encounter.
So this guy would not have known that he had an officer behind him. So he teaches the officer to keep the eye on the person instead of looking up at the person who's coming up on him?
That particular one, I'm not sure what their what patrol tactic that was. This is where my heart lies on the boats. That's some of our pacing exercises, EVOC training.
EVOC means what?
Emergency Vehicle Operator course.
All right.
It's standard for all police agencies across the state of New York. ATV operations. This is part of the whole woods and water policing thing, because your patrol methods could be on a boat, a snowmobile, an ATV, foot patrol, jet ski.
So it sounds like you have a lot of fun.
we can. I mean, there really is opportunity for some good fun. But I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about this now or not, but it's a residential academy, 26 to 27 week long. So you don't go home at night, you show up on a Sunday and you check in, and we lose a lot in the first few weeks. As you know, being a veteran yourself, I'm sure you can remember boot camp.
Well, we didn't really lose that much in boot
No?
camp. The war was going on. I'm a Vietnam War vet.
Okay.
And so people who went into the Navy for
Sure.
a reason, not just to escape the draft or anything. Well, some of them did. But I think our attrition rate was probably less than 2-3%.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So the deadline is August the 3rd, 2022. I mean, you really need, let me ask you something, George. How do they sign up? I mean, there's the poster there, but where are they to go?
You go to the Civil Service website and you search Environmental Conservation Police Officer, and you can sign up there.
So you could do that on your cell phone?
You could do that on your cell phone, yes.
Yeah, and and now let's talk about the lateral positions, lateral opportunities.
It depends on the agency. The nice thing is if you go through our police academy, you get your basic course for police officers. That's what you would need to be a police officer in New York State.
All right,
so once you have that training and that certificate, it opens the door for other agencies. Now, traditionally,
is that VNT as well?
VNT is all covered. So
right.
DCJS sets the minimum training standards to get that course, the basic course for police officers.
What was the initial standing for?
Say again?
JD.
Oh, DCJS, Department of Criminal Justice Services.
Okay.
They regulate and maintain what types of training, minimal hours for vehicle and traffic, criminal procedure law, penal law, arson investigations, that sort of stuff.
Okay, go on.
I kind of lost track where we were.
We were talking about the lateral positions and,
yep.
and how to launch out from
Oh,
that basic.
I was going to mention that. People don't usually leave ENCON, or Environmental Conservation Police. They usually leave other agencies to come to us.
Oh, really?
It's very rare that we'll have somebody leave. I'm not saying we're better than anyone else. It's just, it's generally a very well-respected and highly sought-after career in law enforcement.
Now, from what I understand, looking up, getting some of this information, that there's an outreach, particularly for people who do not traditionally go into environmental.
Yes, yes.
You know, and so, you know, if you want to get out of the cities and stuff, Buffalo and everything else, I mean, Niagara Falls, there's a lot of shooting out there on the streets, but when you're here in the city, you hear gunshots, you say, oh my God, something happened. When you're out there, you hear gunshots, and you say, God, I hope they hit the deer or turkey, whatever they were shooting at. So now, what can you tell us about, everybody has equal opportunity to do this. When you were hired, like you said, you didn't know what your ranking was. Do you remember what your test score was?
It was, I believe it was an 85.
Oh, so 85, okay. And so 85 and the state troopers marginally will get you in.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got in.
Yeah, I wasn't at the top of the class when I got in with that score because it's based on score and then it's the third letter of your last name if everyone has 85s.
Really?
So I'm an age, yeah.
So that just mixes us up, then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's clever. Without discussing anything that you can't discuss, how many African Americans have you worked with in this particular job, or any other minority? Native Americans?
On the job?
Yeah.
Not that many, and not enough. And that's why the state is making a big push to help our recruitment efforts to search into different areas where maybe hunting and fishing isn't a well-known thing. They don't know who an ENCON officer is, a DEC as a whole is. So that's why they've been pushing us. Get out to different areas.
Right now we're in what the former used to be the village of LaSalle, now it's part of the city of Niagara Falls. I notice a demographic shift where more African Americans, and I'm African American, so I particularly watch out for that, are starting to explore other opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
and the stigma of doing so is not what it used to be. It sounds like a tremendous opportunity.
Oh, it certainly is. Even if you don't have a fish and hunting background, we teach you the environmental conservation law. You know, I know the state's also, in addition to the diversity, they're also pushing for the 30 for 30 program, which they're hoping to get 30% more female recruits by 2030 into all of our basic schools. And the way I see it personally with my recruiting efforts is every neighborhood has good minds. Every neighborhood has good minds.
Oh,
and if we're not exploring all of them, we're missing out as an agency. And when I retire and I'm gone and I'm forgotten someday, I still want this career, the men and women in the DEC's Division of Law Enforcement, to thrive. So while I'm here, we're going to search the far ends of Niagara County, and there's officers across the whole state of New York that are on this big push.
Really quickly, let's talk about pay.
Yes.
At leaving the academy is how much?
When you start the academy, you're at, I think it's 56,000.
All right.
Okay. You have a two-year probationary. So the academy is 6 months.
All right.
So then you get in the field, you get in your first sector. A year and a half later, you're off probation. You're at almost $72,000. Now,
Okay, we only have a few moments.
yes.
What do you top off at? Normally, average person would top off.
Like in a year,
Well, when they
I mean,
get ready to
'cause-
retire, what are you pulling in?
you're close to 90,000.
Yeah, that's what
I mean, and that's if you work, and you know, there's plenty of overtime for us officers to
All right.
work. I mean, and it's not just the pay; it's the benefits, it's the camaraderie, the esprit de corps,
Absolutely.
all of that, serving your community.
Well, George,
Come join us.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well,
You know what I mean? Come join us.
If
There's
I
a
was
lot to do
younger, I
here.
would. I mean, state troopers was nice, but I didn't want to be along the highway with a radar detector. I would have
Yeah.
rather been traipsing out in the woods. Perhaps I should have lateraled then.
Yeah.
But thank you so very much for coming on. And
Thank you
I
for
hope that
having
we
me.
can reach the people that we need to reach. And we're not just looking for just one type of person. We're looking for all types of people. Because all types of people, when we reach where America need to be, all types of people will be doing all types of things. And who knows, the fella that might take your place one day and have that uniform on, might be that little fella that kissed your little girl.
Ken?
And this is Ken Hamilton. This is Clearing the Mist. Hey, stay tuned for the rest of the week. Great shows lined up. Remember that you can actually call in and type your way in, ask questions. There's fantastic lineups for the rest of the week. We're looking forward to you being a regular participant. And remember, what George says is that there's opportunities there for everybody. Please take advantage of it because we need you right there. We need you out there doing that job. God bless, and we'll see you next week.